here. Yes, we're live over here. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our online old time jam. We're in the key of G, in case you didn't get the memo, and we'll be in the key of G for this entire session. Hello from Jan Douglas. Hi, Jan. Rose Spinks is watching. Hi, Rose. Thanks for tuning in. We've got a mixture of better and lesser known old-time fiddle tunes in the key of G. I'll be in standard tuning the whole evening. Beth will be uncapoed for the whole evening, so we won't be moving targets for you to follow like we sometimes are.
But we will have some minor chords.
Yeah, we will have some chords beyond 1, 4,
two
and 5.
chords. And
that's right.
Things like that.
Yeah, a couple surprises. And Beth is a little bit under the weather. We don't think it's COVID.
We hope.
We hope. But that makes the virtual jam environment that much better.
This is exactly what I was thinking. We
right?
can still participate and not be typhoid Mary.
That's
you know?
right.
So,
all right, we thought we'd crank things off with Sandy River Belle, one of our favorite tunes to play in the key of G, and hopefully one that you all know and will enjoy playing along with us.
this has a minor.
Yes, this has a little bit of E minor, 6 minor, relative minor, however you want to think of it in the A part, the way that Beth likes to chord it. And these are our chords and these are our versions. They're not the chords or the versions of the tunes, just so you know.
We're going to illustrate that in a big way on
Later on,
1, 2,
we sure
yeah.
are. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite banjo tuning, the Sandy River Belle tuning, GEADE. Let us know in the comments, banjo players, if you happen to be tuned there and enjoy playing there. I hope you do. All right. Charlie Walden from Texas is tuning in. That's a rare experience. Hi, Charlie.
Sure heard a lot about your
from
exploits
Toronto.
at the camp.
Yep. All right. Steve Allerton, a lot of friends out there watching. Thanks so much for tuning in. Open G is a great place to play too, Brian. Don't worry about that. All of these tunes kind of go whichever way the banjo player wants to go. There's also that old G tuning, G, D, G, D, E, that Chris Cool does some beautiful things in. Let us know if anybody out there is in that tuning. If I were playing the banjo in this jam, I'd be in Sandy River Belle tuning all the way through because that's just how I am. But those other tunings for G certainly have their advantages. I didn't mean to put you off during that tune, but I saw your expression looking grim on camera, and I didn't think you'd be happy with it.
Honestly, I was trying not to cough.
Was that it?
That was what it was.
Okay.
I apologize if I mess up the sound with the coughing.
That's all right.
Let's see, how many, let's see, echinacea, honey, hibiscus, elderberry. Any other suggestions? Vitamin C.
Yeah, let us know your favorite cold remedy in the comments, assuming that's all it is. All right, let's play another number, shall we here? Oh, Sandy River Belle tuning for banjo. Maybe I didn't list those notes. G, E, A, D, E. The 4 full-length strings are tuned as if for A-modal tuning, and if you capo for A-modal, you'll want a capo for Sandy River Belle, even though it'd be used here for the key of G. But G on the 5th string, not A. And your home position shape in that tuning looks a whole lot like the G shape on the guitar. Looks kind of like that, but without some interior strings. Fun tuning to play in. Don't be scared of it if you've never tried it. We're going to play a tune from Kentucky fiddler John Salyer, one of our favorite source musicians. This is the Roosian Rabbit, or Russian according to some, but I like it pronounced and spelled Roosian, R-O-O-S-I-A-N. Isn't that how you first learned it?
Yeah, I like it a lot. It's spelled that way.
And you wanted to say something about the chording on the A part, didn't you?
Yeah, it's...
There's not much going on.
There's not much to it. It's basically just mostly G all the way through, a quick turnaround on the D and back. So I might recommend that just to keep yourself from being bored, the guitar players, is to experiment with droning on the low bass. Just keep it as a drone sound
rather than doing like an alternating bass thing,
right? Instead of
or
strumming or
drums.
anything like that. Just give it a try. I'll try to do it a lot.
And then the B part will kind of lighten the mood, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. The Roosian Rabbit. Roosian Rabbit, or Russian Rabbit if you prefer, from John Salyer. Isn't that fun? Love that one. Oh, a lot of friends tuning in. Mike Resnick. Hello, Mike. We missed seeing you the other weekend.
Hope you're recovering well.
Yes. Bill Smedley from Pennsylvania. Hi, Bill. Terry Burdick suggesting a cold remedy, hot rum and lemon. Then again, everything's better with rum. Hear, hear.
I might not be able to find the chords on the right fret if I did that.
Ooh, Eve Bader is here suggesting a remedy, whiskey and honey and lemon juice.
Yeah.
1 to 1 to 1.
Let's see about that.
I like those ratios.
I got a bunch of mini balls of Fireball for Christmas, so maybe I'll go see about that in a little while.
Okay. Tracy, if you're still out there wondering about banjo tuning, pick your favorite banjo G tuning. The open G is just fine. That Sandy River Bell tuning that I like, GEADE, is a lot of fun. The old G tuning that some people enjoy, G, D, G, D, E, they're all good, especially if you're not having to play all of the notes, since that's my job here. You can leave any out that those tunings don't offer you great access to. All right, I hope everyone's having a good time. I know we are.
I'm glad I'm not breathing on you. This is wonderful.
That's right.
I can play and I don't have to breathe on them.
That's
really
right.
good.
Let's do a more relaxed one here. A beautiful tune from Kentucky called Merriwether.
But a lot of people don't play it relaxed.
Well, we're going to play it relaxed.
Yeah.
It's just such a pretty tune. It has never felt quite right to me at a peppy pace.
Some people do like to play this very peppy, but we've always seen it as more of a beautiful tune like
rolling
that.
thing.
Yeah.
All right, Merriwether, and we'll do our best to pick a tempo and stick with it.
You're
It's
right.
a little hard.
That is hard.
Trying to remember how this starts. Merriwether.
Yeah.
There it is. We did practice these tunes. It's
Good.
just been a little while. Merriwether. I love that one. If you're not used to playing or hearing it at that tempo, let us know what you think in the comments. You know, I run into a lot of people at music camps who feel like for old-time music to be legitimate, it must be played above X tempo threshold, and we just don't think that's necessarily true. There are some tunes that sound better faster, that's for sure.
Totally. I mean, totally there's some that sound better faster.
But I think as long as you have a groove and a drive in your rhythm, the actual tempo matters less.
And you can experiment with different sounds, then figure out if they blend or if they don't blend, and if you're doing it at a super fast pace, you can't really tell.
Yes, that's right.
These kind of things.
Mike Romke approves of the tempo. Thanks for that, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Glad you like it. All right, here's a horse of a different color coming up, but it's not going to be hard. Don't worry. This is a Bill Cheatham in the key of G. I know you might think of Bill Cheatham as going in A, but this is a G version from Melvin Wine of West Virginia, and it's really cool. We love it a lot. The A part is, I think, pretty recognizable as the usual A part of Bill Cheatham, just not in the usual key. The B part is totally different, but it's almost like a fork of deer style B part.
It is,
right?
and it's also, for the guitar player, it can be really boring, the B part.
It's almost all the 5 chord.
Almost entirely.
Until the very end.
And what can, you can give it a little more drama or a little more punctuation by doing a run, holding the 5 and then doing a run back to it. Doom, doom, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah,
like
on
that.
the A string.
On the A
Good
string.
call.
And that gives it a little more punch and a little more definition. But otherwise, you just sit on the, what did you say? Ride the 5 and strive for tone.
Yeah, instead of the usual ride the 1 and strive for tone. Yep. And seriously, don't let that B part melody trick you into thinking that it's going to resolve back to 1 in the middle of the part. It kind of sounds like it wants to, but it doesn't. And watch her hands. Other than that run, and at the very end where it resolves to G, she's going to be sitting on that 5, and it's going to work and sound really cool.
Or the other way to term it, bucket full of D.
Bucket full of D.
Yeah.
The B part of this time. That's right. But it's a really cool version, and we'd love to hear more people out there playing it. So hope you'll enjoy it right here. Melvin Wine's Bill Cheatham.
always jazz.
I love it. Or play the same bad note twice in a row and say that it was...
It's totally jazz.
Yeah, intentional.
Intentional jazz, yeah.
Do you like Melvin Wine's Bill Cheatham? Isn't that a fun version? Just love that one. Please share that with your old-time music friends. Oh, interesting. Sue from Toronto says, this Bill Cheatham is the same way we play it because we play it in G. Now I want to hear the other key we mentioned. Interesting. Wouldn't it be great if this became the dominant version?
It's fun. It's a lot of fun for the guitar.
Yeah.
For sure.
Bob Townsend is out there. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Bob.
And he says Oscar Overturf also played Bill Cheatham in G. Interesting. I'll have to look that version up. Cool. Jim Cooper is out there.
Oh, hey, Jim.
Tuning in from Jeff and Val Seitz's house in St. Louis. That's fun.
You guys are partying, I bet you.
Yep. Robin Willis, hello. Joanna Harkness,
Oh.
hello. Oh, Sandra Melsheimer from Mississippi. Love Melvin Wine's Bill Cheatham. I'm so glad you do, Sandra. Hello down in Mississippi.
So can I...
We're going to play a Mississippi tune
next.
That's perfect timing,
there you
Sandra.
Go. Sandra, for whatever it's worth, my grandma, my biggest influence in my life was from Moss Point, Mississippi. So.
Yep, and we visited there
And we went there, went to see it recently, a couple of years ago.
Enjoyed Mississippi a lot.
Yeah.
All right, so our Mississippi tune, maybe this is the only Mississippi tune on the list tonight, is a good one.
Don't send it out, aren't you?
Am I?
Yeah.
Who am I going to send it out to?
To our friend in Durham.
Oh, sure. Who's tuning in?
Right.
We're going to send this out to our good friend Terry Burdick, banjo player from Durham, North Carolina, who's been enjoying this tune a lot lately and has gotten us a little more jazzed up about it. It's called Going Up to Hamburg. And I meant to check on Google Maps to see if there's a Hamburg in Mississippi. You thought it was Kentucky or something, but this is definitely a Mississippi tune.
Yeah.
Maybe there's Hamburg, Tennessee, up above Mississippi. I don't know.
I don't know. You did find a record, or source recording.
Yeah, it was recorded in the 30s by John Hatcher from Mississippi. Fiddlin' John Hatcher. Really nice playing on
But
that recording.
I learned it. I used to spend a lot of time hanging around the Red Hots, and I learned it from the Red Hots, and they have a very red hotty version of it on their Ready to Roll CD.
And we were able to find that,
we did.
I think, on YouTube.
I think we found it on YouTube, and Tom Riccio's singing is not to be missed on that tune. He's an amazing singer. So,
Absolutely.
So check it out on YouTube.
All right. So structurally, this tune is a little bit strange. I think of it as having two short parts, A and B. They're like half-length parts, and then a little tag that sends us back into the top of the tune. The A part of the tune is mainly E minor with a little resolution to G at the end, and that's why we're including it in the G jam. It's fine in all the G tunings. And then the B part, Beth chords differently the first time versus the second time. We're aiming for her to use the 4 chord the first time and the minor chord, the E minor, the second time, and they both work over the notes that I'm playing. You'll hear how that works.
Think positive. Remember, I have a cold, but we'll aim for it.
That's right. And then the tag is like a single phrase that's all E minor on the end, and then you'll hear where the A part restarts. We've got 91 people watching right now. That's a great number.
What a terrible time to be sick.
Love it.
Anyway.
All right, Going Up to Hamburg. Hope you enjoy this tune as much as we do, and we're not going to play it too fast, are we? up to Hamburg. Do you like that one? Let us know what you think. How do you like those chords? Are you used to hearing it chorded that way? We've heard it chorded a lot of different ways, and this is just the way we kind of settled on.
Who was it that just recorded it? Was it the Onlys?
It was the Rug Lifters,
The Rug
that
Lifters.
Only's offshoot.
Yeah.
Sandy Parks is tuning in. Hi, Sandy. She says that there is a Hamburg in Franklin County, Mississippi, located on the former Yazoo and Mississippi Valley Railroad. Thank you, Sandy. I'm going to look that up on the map still and see where it is. Brian Peak confirms there is a Hamburg, Mississippi, so that must be the place.
Right.
Yeah. Such a good tune. Love that one.
Dramatic.
Yep.
But Tom Riccio's singing, he does, I don't know that there's words beyond going up to Hamburg, going up to Hamburg, going up to Hamburg.
Going
but
up to-
he can make it sound like a treatise.
Yeah,
You know,
I think it's
so
like going up to Hamburg, pretty little lady, going up to Hamburg,
something-
not sure of that
something,
last
something.
line, and then getting me a dram is somewhere in that.
Well,
too.
that would be Riccio.
Yeah,
So,
maybe.
yeah, look up the Red Hot's Ready to Roll CD version of that.
Yeah, and then look up
It's
the Rug
very cool.
Lifters, and you might be able to decipher more of the lyrics.
words. Yeah.
All right, Smack is
Ah,
watching with us, by the way.
I wish he was with
And
us.
sending nice feedback. We love you too, Smack. Wish you were here. Wish you were here playing the fiddle, and I'd
Sure
just take a
hoping to-
break, or I'd play the banjo or something.
We're sure hoping to see you in 2024.
Yes. All right, let's go back to bright, sunny, happy-sounding G-tunes. This is a nice one from the Midwest called Indian Corn that has been making its rounds through the community the past few years. We like this one, don't you?
Oh yeah, I was just thinking we played this for a jam in West Virginia right after we first learned it, and this guy wrote us and said that's the worst or best, whichever one you want to say, earworm he had ever heard in his life.
It is very catchy,
So-
isn't it?
It sticks with you.
All right, Indian Corn.
Pretty basic chords.
Yeah, to hear this one is to know it, really. is catchy, isn't it?
Very catchy.
Pretty fun. And that's from Illinois, by the way. We love playing tunes from the Midwest. We love playing tunes from places like Mississippi and Alabama, spots that people might not associate with old-time music, to just show how widespread this stuff is.
Right. Well, I guess it depends on where you're from, because the people in the Midwest probably think we're upstarts.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so. They've got such a deep, rich tradition of
Your
fiddle
left
music.
hand can't be seen very well.
That's all right. It never can.
Okay.
In this view.
Just checking.
Although I will say, the view is always different when we're setting this up to when we actually go live. And if people are struggling to see Beth's guitar chords, let us know and I can try to tweak the camera. And if you want to see anything different in the fiddle, speak right up and we'll try to fix it. I wish it were, I don't know, I wish the sneak preview were truer to real life, or however you might put it. All right. So far, Ross. Thanks, Ross, for asking. Could you scoot over a tab so we can see your left-hand fingering? I assume you're talking to me. Let's
that's what
try
that's
this.
what I was talking about. I didn't see it either. Is that better?
Better? I hope so. Am I covering up Beth's left hand from view? Maybe not. Are you comfortable, though?
Yeah.
You sure?
I think so.
Okay. Better? Okay. Yes, thank you. Let's see if we can move the camera a little farther back. It's just a little different every time, too, the view that I get. Yeah, I think that's some better.
If Joanna's still on, maybe she can start training Marshall to be our sound person.
That's right. Play that G a little more. I'm not happy with my tuning. Thank you.
While he's tuning, I thought I would say something about that. We periodically get asked if we can do requests, and we're happy to do requests. We just can't do them that day because we do, believe it or not, practice quite a bit beforehand and try to get everything worked out. And so it's kind of hard for us to do it on the fly. But if you have a request you want us to do and we know it, let us know. Like when we first put the announcement up,
Yeah. We try to announce like 5 or 6
days, and then we'll see if we can put it in,
or just put it in the comment thread, and we'll add it to our wish list for later sessions.
To another time and everything. But it's not that we're trying to be arbitrary. We just try to do as good a job as we can.
We do, and even if they're tunes that we know, I want to kind of zero in on a version that I think will convey well to this setting, and we might have to make decisions about chords, things like that.
Well, we're happy to take it under consideration.
Yes,
for sure, and try to do it if we can.
That's right. Let's do another common one. Want to?
Oh yeah.
This is one of the best tunes there is, I think, and
you
people
say it
have.
was the best tune there was?
Yeah, at one time I was known to say that. I think it's fallen out of favor with a lot of people just because it's played so much. But I think it's one of those tunes that got that way for a reason. It's just that good. Let's play Big Scioty, shall we? And we're going to play the more typical old-time chord progression for the B part. I know the bluegrassers switch some things around when they play it, so Beth is going to go to the minor first, the E minor in the B part, and then the 4 chord, not the other way around. I know some people invert those. We're going to keep this not too fast. that. Never get tired of it.
Big Scioty.
Anybody else think that's one of the best tunes in the old-time canon? I really think it is. It just has everything. All right. People seem happier with the camera view. Thanks for that. We really do try to get it right, but I don't know. Somehow the interface is never the same as it was last time. Oh, here's a fun one that we've just been working up recently. It's been on my radar for a long time, and I've kind of played at it, but we decided this was the opportunity to really work out. Give the Fiddler a Dram, one version of the many versions of this tune, and this one I got excited about thanks to Dan Gellert and Brad Leftwich's wonderful recording of it from probably the early 90s. Does
Yeah,
that sound
I think
about
93,
right?
I think.
Yeah, A Moment in Time. And Brad has uploaded this track and at least one other from that album to his YouTube channel. It's one of those things that I think never made it past cassette tape, so it's a little hard to find. But you can listen to this track out there, and it's just so good.
And Dan Gellert sings this too. We don't sing it.
The lyrics are fascinating.
Utterly fascinating, and Dan's delivery is even better. So it's totally worth checking it out, just to hear Dan sing.
I think a lot of those lyrics are kind of like floating lyrics that show up in multiple things, but one of the verses is Dan singing, "My wife died in Tennessee, they sent her jawbone back to me," and then the singer put the jawbone on the fence and then left it there, but then later on it almost becomes a ghost story because that jawbone left on the fence of the dead wife from Tennessee walks, and the jawbone talks, and the jawbone eats with a knife and fork.
All right.
Hilarious.
Yep. A story for mankind.
Yeah, really. Now this has some interesting chords
Yes,
in
it
it,
does.
and the changes come at you fairly quickly.
So it's going to have.
Shall we maybe go over it just slowly?
But I just want, before we even do, it's gonna the unusual chords are going to be a 7, not 7th, but a 7 chord,
That's
and
the
a
F.
2 and a 2.
And that's the A. Yep, and it's the 7 in the A part and the 2 chord in the B part. No minors.
No minors. It sounds like it has minors, but it isn't.
All right, just real slowly. 1, 2, 3. Repeat. And then that would happen twice more, that little A part motif. And then B part. 1, 2, 3.
That is, I play A with one finger.
Yeah, flat finger is
so
the 2.
So that's the 2 or an A, right there.
Yep.
So.
Yep. But seriously, if you've never heard that Dan Gellert and Brad Leftwich rendition of this tune, you haven't lived until you've heard it. It's just so good.
It truly is a jewel.
All right.
play.
Give the Fiddler a Dram. You like that one?
We've gotten so we hardly ever use that 7 chord anymore, and so it's kind of intriguing to go back to it again. And a tune, and I'm not really thinking about it too much.
Yes.
So there it comes.
Yep. And people out there who know my tastes in chords know that I often say, like, never the 7. Use the 4 or the 5 or ride the 1 instead. But we couldn't figure out any other sound that worked in that spot besides the 7. If you found a way to avoid the 7 chord in that version of Give the Fiddler a Dram, let us know what you figured out.
The dreaded
I'm curious
F.
about it.
Avoid the dreaded F.
I know it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just kind of a jarring sound, but sometimes it's called for, I suppose. I'll grudgingly admit that.
Excuse me. So,
All
I'm
right.
gonna say something about this after you do.
The next tune?
Another tune, yeah.
Okay, we're getting ready to play Sunny Home. It's a really sweet G tune. If you haven't heard it, it goes exactly where you expect it to. The form is a little bit odd. I think of it as having double length parts, like extra long ones. So extra long A again. It does repeat. And then extra long B only played once the way we typically hear it done. So it'll feel maybe a little lopsided, but it's not a crooked tune.
And what I wanted to say about it is it's the absolute best tune I have ever come across to practice every single trick you know in how to make sound different.
Yeah, it's so much fun for the guitar.
Every run, every pull off, every Del McCurry run, every alternate bass, just pressure off and on. Anything you can think of, throw it in there because it really doesn't sound bad at any point.
And I think because of those long form parts, the chord changes are all a little on the long side. You go to a chord and sit there for a while, so you've got time to play around.
So just play around. Literally what I do is I just hold the G and just play. I just go all over the place and look for something that sounds good. So, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun for the guitar, this one.
Yes.
For a change.
It's fun on the fiddle, too. Sunny Home.
happy sound in
It
that
sure
too.
is. Okay, we've got a couple more.
Any commentary?
Steve Rosen is there. Hi,
Hey,
Steve. Hope we get to jam with you sometime this summer.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. We're going to play something a little bit crooked, but I think it's not that hard to make sense of, and hopefully y'all will agree.
Is it Steve Rosen who owned this tune? Yeah.
On Old Time Billy?
Oh, no, but on 11.
No, I don't think so.
No?
No, I don't think so.
You're right.
Yes.
Never mind.
I don't think so. Nice try.
Nice try.
Did we play something earlier that Steve Rosen might have been on?
Indian corn?
No, I guess not. Sorry,
well.
Steve.
We think of you.
Yep, we played tunes in these before that we associate with Steve Rosen, but not on tonight's list, I guess. We're going to play an old-time Billy in the Lowground. And this doesn't sound anything like that C tune by the same name, Billy in the Lowground. This is from Kelly Gilbert, I think the fiddler's name was, from Kentucky. And it's got a little tag on the end of the parts. Let me talk you through. So we've got an initial A-part phrase. No crookedness yet. Phrase 2. Phrase 1 repeats, as it so often does. And then a final phrase that's slightly elongated. So it's got like an extra measure if we were tabbing or transcribing. And the B part is arranged likewise. It has an initial phrase. Second phrase that's different. The initial phrase repeats. Nothing crooked yet, and then that same final phrase as in the A part, that's a little bit elongated. Actually, the final phrase is not the same as the A part, but the way that it's organized is the same way. So that's like square, and then that elongates it. So if in doubt, when you reach the end of a part, just hang out on your G note or your G chord a little bit longer than you might expect before getting ready for the next thing. That's all there is to it. It's such a sweet melody, too. time building in the Lowground. Doesn't sound like any other building in the Lowground, does it?
Not to me.
We like that one. We learned that from Claire Milliner and Walt Coken an awful long time ago. All right, how are people doing? We've still got 80 people tuning in, watching now with us. I'm so glad.
Gracious.
All right. I think we're going to do 2 more here. This is a real fun one.
Yeah.
Though. Real fun. From the Midwest, as far as I know, because we learned it from the playing of Rhys Jones back when he was mainly playing Midwestern tunes. But if anyone knows this to come from someplace other than the Midwest, please let us know. It's a version of Ryestraw that has nothing to do with that round peak Tommy Jarrell setting in the key of D.
This one is not joke on the guitar player.
No, it kind of goes exactly where you expect, but it has some quick changes.
Yeah.
Short little parts, too. Ryestraw. There are a few different Ryestraws, I guess, not just this one and the Tommy Gerald one.
That's true.
It's a funny tune. All right, we're getting ready for our last number. I thought I'd remind folks that I've pinned some tip jar links to the top of the comment thread if you're interested. Please let us know in the comments or via private message later on if that's easier. If you have any requests for future sessions, if there's anything that we can do differently to help you have a better time playing along. These are not meant to be instructional per se in real time, but hopefully we're giving you the visuals that you need and the leadership that you need to play along successfully. But we've heard from an awful lot of people who enjoy visiting the archived version of these jams with the ability to push the pause button and rewind and really work on the tune. So if you didn't realize that's an option, it is. I wish it were easier to like file these videos all together, but I haven't figured out a way to do that.
Facebook doesn't allow you to index them.
You just got to go to my page, and anyone can view these. Go to the photos. Once you're in photos, click on videos, and then scroll through the videos and look for the thumbnails that look like this, where I'm trying to find the right button to press. I think one of them isn't thumbnailed that way. Oddly, it just kind of looks like we look now, but all of the others start with my face close to the camera, and I'm sure this one will too. We do leave them all up so that people can go back and play along and learn more from them. So hope that's been a helpful resource for folks. But we love it when you tune in live and we can read some of your comments to the extent that we can keep up with them and see how many folks are watching.
That's
with
exciting.
us. Yes, I
And
wish we could hear you play along.
I know, I wish so too.
Mm-hmm.
So in the off season, it's nice to know that we're together in some which way.
That's right. And stay tuned. We'll do another one of these late winter, early spring, somewhere in that time of year, at least in the American part of the world. Don't know how that translates to other parts of the world farther south than this, right?
Right.
We're going to play for our last number, Roaring River. Roaring River. I feel like this title shows up in multiple places too, but this is the one from Alabama, and I think it was collected by our friends Jim and Joyce Coffin, who did a lot of field work down there, but it comes from a fiddler that I know they spent time with from northern Alabama named Monty Sano Crowder.
Cool,
and it's a
name.
really cool tune. It's not exactly to hear it is to know it. It's got a little bit crooked B part, and it's got an unlikely chord in the B part that Beth wants to say a word about.
Well, when I learned this tune, I learned it from Jim and Joyce's recording, I guess.
Yeah, they did record it.
And not to say that Joyce did this, because we might have to go have a conversation about that, but what I heard.
It's how we perceived
we perceived it. And Joyce may not do this, but how I perceived it was that it has an A minor.
A
minor chord in it.
2 minor.
So we played it for a couple of years, because not many other people played it, and I was playing it with a minor chord. The next thing I knew, it was
playing
very popular. The tune was very popular, but they were playing it with an A major. So generally, I would say that if you're going to run into it in a jam, it's going to be the guitarist should play an A major. Not should, but that will be the choice.
That seems to be the done thing.
Yeah, that's what most people are hearing these days. So
either chord works with the fiddle.
Yeah, either one is fine. So what we're going to do, just to cover all the bases, is we're going to play it the way that I heard it until the last 2 times.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a 2 times round warning instead of the usual 1 more.
And then Adam will say, and then we'll play it the last 2 times around with the most popular chord.
Yes, the A major in place of the A minor. But otherwise it'll be A minor in the B part.
Right.
The B part is a little bit crooked, but just ride that 1 chord if in doubt.
And then decide which version you like.
Yeah, let us know which chord you prefer. And thanks again for tuning in. This sure has been fun. Would be more fun if Beth were feeling better. We're going to put her to bed or something next.
Active and coughing, but
all right.
Hopefully it'll be gone soon.
Yeah. two B-part chord options. Let us know which one you like better in the comments.
That was kind of
They're
the case with
both fun.
Piney Woods Gal. Some people like to major and some like to minor, so I play both. I just kind of go through and see which one I feel like at the moment.
That's right. Joyce is here.
Hey,
Joyce Toppin
Joyce!
is here.
So
Just got
Joyce,
here in
give us
time.
the definitive word on
Joyce
that.
says it is A major.
Okay.
A major. Okay. We both heard something in that recording that made us think otherwise, but now we know, and Joyce is the collector of the tune.
She knows what she's talking about.
Yep, that's right. All right, thanks for chiming in. Thanks all for the nice words. Wonderful to read all of this. We will read more carefully when we're not playing here. People having so
Are there
many nice things
any
to say.
preferences for key for next
Let
time?
us know what keys you'd like to hear more or less of. When we were collecting tunes for this jam, we were kind of worried that we wouldn't have enough G tunes left for another G jam that we haven't already done. We try to do new tunes in every one of these, and we actually have quite a few jam suitable G tunes that we haven't already done. Mm-hmm. So I think you can count on at least a couple more G jams before we have to go and learn some new tunes. But seriously, let us know what you'd like to hear, and we will aim to please. Hope you've enjoyed playing along tonight. Looking forward to reading all the feedback more carefully. A lot of people are saying feel better.
Oh, thank you. It just came on me yesterday. It's very quick.
Rita says she has moonshine.
All right. That's a great cure for anything.
That's right. Steve Rosen, here's the train. You live near a railroad. Lucky. That's right. Come on down and tell us all about it.
Yep. So
okay.
we'll try not to be hacking and coughing the next time.
With any luck.
Yeah.
Stay in touch. Let us know how we can be more helpful or more fun. See y'all later. Bye now.
Bye.